Hello, everyone. We're working through statistical methods for rates and proportions, chapter 5, how to randomize, section 5.3. So we're going to start with the same example where we have a data set with 250 patients, 75 non-females and 175 females. So as we set this up, we're going to once again use our same seed, so we get the same exact simple random sample of our 250 patients of size 100. And we're going to create our simple random sample as we did before. We can get a summary of the data, which we have 40% of our patients being sampled. Remember that 70% of them were female. And what I can do from here is I can then set up just a data set for the females where I pick off all the females. And when I do this, I can then do a sample of the females. And what I'm going to do is sample just 50 females and replace equals false. That means because once we sample a patient, we're not going to sample them again. And I'm going to create a stratified random sample. So in this case, I don't want to just have everyone having an equal chance of being selected. I want to select 50 females and I want to select 50 males. So I'm creating my stratified random sample by first defining all of my patients to not be in the sample. And then I'm going to just pick off the females that I sampled, this S dot female, and I'm going to assign them a value of 1. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing for my non-females. I'm going to create this data set and I'm going to pick off all the non-females. Okay, and once again, I'm going to create a sample for the non-females by selecting 50 people. All right, I'm going to create my stratified random sample by setting everyone to 0. But then for my sample of non-females, they're going to get a value of 1. So if I look at the summary of the original data set, I can see that I have 70% females and there's a 40% chance of being in the simple random sample, right? However, if I look at data.female, right, the stratified random sample, we see that only 28%, 29% of the females were selected, right? Because I'm setting this value to a size of 50 out of the 175 females that we have. And if I look at the summary for the non-females, we can see that since we had a size of 50, right, but there were only 75 males to choose from, that essentially 67% of the males or non-females ended up in our sample. So in the case of the simple random sample, what might happen is that since we had so many more female patients, that we would end up with so many more females in our study. But if we want to create even groups, to make sure that we get a certain number of people from each of those strata, we can set it up like this by first separating by some variable and then sampling from those subgroups. And if I wanted to, I could look at this data set put back together. So I could create a new data set, data.new. Right, and I could put the data.female with the data.non-female. And if I wanted, I could look at a summary of that data. And when I do that, I see that under the simple random sample, 40% of my data set was selected. Under the stratified random sample, 40% were selected. But the difference between the two is that in the simple random sample, everyone had an equally likely chance of being in. And since my patient list had so many more females, I'm going to have more females in my simple random sample as well. Whereas for the stratified random sample, I've set the mark so that each of the strata are going to have 50 patients represented. So now my 100-person sample is going to be evenly distributed across that female flag of 0 and 1. So I hope you learned something about sampling and how you could do this in R, and I will see you next time.